They call it Viers, the Red Lake, a name whispered through the narrow alleys of Bix County, where the winters hang low like dying breath, and the wind carries with it more than the scent of pine and peat. Some say the lake was born from a natural spring, mineral-rich and iron-heavy. Others, however, the ones who speak with lowered voices and eyes that dart toward the tree line, will tell you it is not iron, but the memory of blood that stains those waters. And it all began with a girl, or perhaps with the silence she broke. In the year of 1613, when Hungary teetered on the edge of Ottoman rule, and the Holy Roman Empire loomed like a lion over its fractured limbs, there lived a baron named Ender D. He was not famous. His name seldom appears in court records or war memoirs. But for those who remember, he is the reason the lake turned red, and why some girls, even today, walk wide circles around it, never alone, never after dark. Inherited a stretch of land dense with forest and riddled with wolves. It was poor land, but it came with a manor, an aging, stone-jawed estate nestled near a lake that had no name yet. His wife was young, beautiful, and by all accounts terrified of him. In portraits found centuries later, her eyes always seemed to look somewhere just past the painter, as if watching for someone to come through the door. They arrived in late autumn, the leaves a dying gold, and by spring the servants began to notice a pattern. Girls, usually from neighboring farms, would arrive for temporary work. Housemaids, cooks, attendants, they would stay a few weeks, then vanish. No funerals, no announcements. Just gone. Some said they left for the city. Others, that they'd been married off. But the truth began to leak in ways not even silence could drown. A stable boy found a lock of hair wedged into the roots of an old elm. A washerwoman discovered a boot still laced, still warm, sinking into the reeds by the lake. But no one spoke it aloud. Not then. Because to accuse a nobleman was treason, and in Hungary of the 1600s, treason was not something whispered. It was choked on as the noose tightened. Then came the night of the red moon. On June 3rd, under a sky bled dry by eclipse, a young girl named Catalin disappeared. She was only 14. Her mother, Ilona, a widow who had already buried 2 sons to sickness, refused to accept the silence. She screamed. She clawed at the manor gates until her fingers bled. She threatened, she prayed, she cursed, and then she was invited inside. For weeks the village said nothing. But the guards at the manor, who were paid with coin and silence, began to drink more heavily. One of them was seen sobbing into his horse's mane. And the lake began to change. First, a faint tinge, like the wind dregs at the bottom of a chalice. Then, within days, it bloomed red thick and unnatural, as though God himself had spilled a sacrificial bowl upon the earth. The church was summoned. Not the village priest, he had already gone missing, but an envoy from Eger. Father Chalet, a hard-eyed Jesuit known for rooting out heresy with both fire and faith. He arrived wearing black, rode a white horse, and carried no Bible, only a thin silver cross bound in iron wire. He was granted audience with the baron. What was said that night remains unknown, for no record survives. But witnesses say Father emerged pale, silent, and trembling. He did not sleep at the manor, spent the night in the church crypt, and at dawn he declared the lake cursed, not simply haunted, not poisoned. Cursed. And here's where the story fractures between the threads of memory, madness, and myth. Some claim the baron was performing right stark invocations to preserve his youth, or to call forth the favor of demons whispered about in older tongues. Others insist it was not he, but the wife, who held the blade. That beneath her beauty lay something ancient, that she spoke to the lake when no one watched. But the truth, like the lake, was red, and it refused to settle. A young monk brother who traveled with Father later wrote in a letter one that was censored, hidden, and only resurfaced in the archives of a Prague convent in 1891 that only those untouched by flesh survived the water. At first it made no sense, until the pattern emerged. 3 women from the village went into the lake to wash linens. Only one returned. She was 13. A local healer attempted to gather samples for study. His hands dissolved within hours. But the daughters, the young girls, the ones untouched by man, they emerged unharmed, shaken, cold, but alive. And so began the whisper. Only the pure could walk the lake's edge. Only the virginal would be spared. It wasn't long before fear became law. Girls were kept inside. Bathing became ritualized, overseen, accounted for. Weddings were delayed. Touch became taboo. And Ender D, he disappeared. Some say he drowned. Others, that his body was found nailed to a tree in the forest, throat stuffed with rose petals. But the most persistent story, the one told even now in candlelit kitchens and 2 children who dare play near the tree line, is that he was swallowed by the lake, dragged down not by hands, but by the guilt soaked into the soil. And in the years that followed, the red lake remained. It never faded, never dried. Birds do not land upon it, fish do not swim within it. And when it rains, the drops that fall onto the lake surface turn red before they vanish. No scientist has ever explained it, because none have dared to take water samples, at least, but not the ones who lived. They buried what they could, not the bodies, those were rarely found, but the fear, the collective guilt, the way silence festered into culture. For generations, the villagers treated the lake not as a body of water, but as a living boundary, a red-skinned god, a bleeding eye. They built no docks, they erected no shrines, but the rules were etched deeper than stone. Do not speak its name after dark, not touch the surface on your monthly blood, and above all, do not lie about your purity. This last rule was not superstition, it was survival. In 1734, a scholar from Vienna, Emil Varga, visited the region during a broader investigation into natural anomalies in Central Europe. He was an Enlightenment man, rational, methodical, dressed in fine linens, smelling of ink and arrogance. When the villagers warned him not to let his assistant, a young maid named Clara, approach the lake, he laughed, called him medieval minds rotting in rainwater. Clara went missing that same night. He found her slippers on the shore. Nothing else. Emil claimed wolves. But the wolves did not wear rosaries, nor did they leave behind wet footprints on the floor of his rented home. Prints that ended at the edge of his bed. Emil returned to Vienna, a broken man. He never published again. By the turn of the 19th century, the lake had devoured over 70 known soulswomen mostly. Some boys too, though only those beyond a certain age. And so a theory formed, not written, but understood. The lake punished desire, or more precisely, the consummation of it. To say the lake simply hated sin would be too easy, because then came Anna. Anna, descendant of the infamous Countess, was no stranger to blood. She was raised in Pest by tutors and nurses, taught French at 6, fencing at 9, and had already inherited a small fortune by the time she was 14. But her mind was darker than any inheritance. She did not fear the lake. She sought it. In the summer of 1821, she arrived at Vier's with a caravan of books, mirrors, and one single red dress that she wore every day. The villagers watched her like a storm forming on the horizon. She built a tent at the shore, lit candles at dusk, whispered prayers in Latin. Then, on the 7th night, she stepped into the water. They say she walked until it reached her waist. She stood still for hours and emerged alive, not only unharmed, but transformed. Her skin was luminous, her hair darker, her eyes no longer blinked the way they should. People began to ask, was she pure or was she something else? What followed was a string of disappearances, quiet, precise, no blood, no bodies, just girls, young, strong, beautiful, taken one by one. And always after they spoke to Anna, always after they envied her. Then, a priest named Kisfali, driven by what he called divine terror, stole into her tent and found a journal bound in calfskin. Its contents were never fully transcribed, but scraps remained, copied by trembling hands. The lake remembers. It does not punish lust, it punishes lies. To be entered by man is not the sin, to pretend you have not been, that is. Anna disappeared the following night, not into the lake, but into the woods. Some say she became something else, that she walks still, barefoot, untouched by time, that she sings to the lake in a tongue not spoken by man or beast. And sometimes, the lake sings back. Then came the modern age pavement, engines, secular minds. By the 1950s, a group of Soviet scientists attempted to drain the lake for industrial use. A concrete basin, a dam proposal. Moscow gave its approval. They sent 10 men. Only 3 returned. The survivors refused to speak. One tore out his own tongue in a mental ward near Debrecen. The second wrote symbols on the walls of his hospital cell until his fingers bled. The third simply whispered, "It watches, knows when you lie." No further attempts were made. But the lake, in its strange red calm, did not recede, did not retaliate. It simply waited. It waits still. And this is where history blends with warning. Because the legend, as it lives now, is not just that only virgins are safe, it's that the lake reveals that if you walk into it with a truth hidden in your flesh, it will tear you open until your honesty seeps out. A documentary crew attempted to film a segment near the waterline in 1994. One of the producers, a woman in her 20s, reportedly joked on camera, "Guess I'm not the lake's type." She waded knee-deep into the blood-red shallows, laughing, filming. The footage never aired. Eyes boiled. Her body was found 3 days later. Eyes boiled. Womb emptied. And yet, her fingernails were intact. Under one of them, written in pin-scratched Hungarian, were 5 words. "I lied to the water." They say legends fade when the last person who believes them dies. But in Bix County, belief is not a choice. It is inheritance. Passed through lullabies that skip the sweetness. Whispered between mothers and daughters, not as myth but as instruction. And in the late winter of 2006, belief returned with a face. Her name was 17. Sharp-eyed, sharp-tongued, and burdened by a beauty that made both mothers envious and sons reckless. She came from Budapest, sent to live with her grandmother after a series of incidents at school, though no one ever clarified what those incidents were. Some said she seduced a teacher. Others claimed she broke another girl's arm in a bathroom stall. Whatever the truth, she arrived with silence stitched into her skin. The village eyed her like a crack forming in the dam. Modern, unbothered, she wore perfume. She spoke German. She rolled her eyes when warned about the lake. "Red is just a color," she said, "not a curse." And so it began again. She would walk the lake's edge every morning, earbuds in, hood up. Locals watched from their windows as she flicked cigarette butts into the water. Nothing happened. No mist, no rising foam, not even a ripple, until the dog was a mutt, old, blind in one eye. Belonged to a boy named Marcy, who had followed since her first day like a shadow desperate for light. One evening, he brought the dog with them as they sat near the lake. Laughed, leaned in close, whispered something into Marcy's eye, and the dog, without warning, sprinted into the water. It didn't make it 5 steps. Its body twisted, spasmed, then froze mid-motion, as if every bone had been snapped at once. The lake, once calm, began to boil around it, thick bubbles rising like gasps from a buried mouth. Marcy screamed. Didn't he? She stood, silent, and said, "It wasn't supposed to happen yet." That night, the village priest-father Endor broke 20 years of silence and summoned the elders. He held in his hand a photograph, a grainy Polaroid from 1988. It showed a woman, dark-haired, wearing a red dress, standing at the lake's edge. The back read, "Anna, 1988. She asked about the girl. It seemed was not the beginning. She was the continuation. In the weeks that followed, strange phenomena returned, like old ghosts, shrugging off dust. Water no longer boiled when heated in homes within a mile of the lake. Mirrors cracked without sound. A girl named Esther, barely 11, claimed that a woman with black eyes came to her window at night and whispered, "Don't lie when it calls." Grew paler. She stopped eating. And every night she returned to the lake with a journal she'd never let anyone read. Her grandmother, once the pillar of caution, locked her door and slept with a crucifix under her pillow. Then came the drowning. Not S. Marcy's. His body was found 3 meters from shore, spine twisted, mouth open in a silent scream. His hands clutched at his own stomach, as if trying to hold something in nor hold something back. The doctors said it was heart failure. Locals said otherwise. At the funeral, didn't he cry? She placed a single lily on the coffin and whispered something that no one could hear, except the wind, which immediately shifted, pulling dark clouds overhead, like curtains over a stage about to open. That night, walked into the lake. She left her phone, her shoes, her kotol neatly folded on a bench. The next morning, she was gone. No ripples, no scent, no footprints. But something else remained. The journal. Inside were only 4 pages filled. The first was a drawing charcoal. Frantikov, a face half submerged in water. Its eyes were not human. The second page read, "She comes to those who remember. She waits for those who pretend not to. The lake does not judge. It reveals." The third page was a list of names. All women, all missing. All from different centuries. And the fourth page? Blank except for a single phrase written in dried blood. The red is not water, it's memory. And perhaps in that sentence we come closer to truth than we dare. Because what if the lake does not kill? What if it preserves? Every lie, every touch, every silence. What if it remembers the moment each girl made herself small for safety, and now demands she'll reclaim her size in pain? The villagers sealed S room with salt. The priest left the village weeks later. The grandmother, who had said nothing for days, was found in her sleep, fingers curled around a scrap of red cloth, and the lake. Red. Watching. In 2022, a final attempt was made to break the silence. Not by a priest, not by a scientist, but by a podcaster. Her name was Eva, a cultural anthropologist turned internet sleuth with a calm voice, sharp wit, and a reputation for peeling back the layers of Hungary's darkest folklore. She arrived in Bix County with 2 microphones, a field recorder, and the arrogance of a generation that believes everything can be archived, decoded, and posted by sunrise. The villagers, older now, quieter than ever, warned her, kindly at first, then with gestures, signs of the cross made without faith, eyes that lingered too long on the tree line. One woman who simply said, "You're not the first." Eva smiled, thanked them, and kept recording. She interviewed everyone who dared speak, an old teacher who once taught, a midwife who swore the lake was warmer than the air in January. Even the priest's niece, who admitted off record that her uncle had drowned from the inside years ago. And then Eva did what none of them dared. She played back the voices near the lake. She returned every night for 7 days, left her recorder running, sat by the shore in silence, staring at her own reflection distorted in blood-hued glass. On the 7th night, her voice memo ended with a single, whispering line spoken not by her, not by any villager. "You lied to him. He touched you, and you lied." Eva posted the episode 3 days later. She called it The Crimson Truth. It was her last upload. She vanished a week later. Her apartment in Budapest was untouched. Her laptop was still warm, but the hard drive was missing. And on her pillow, someone had placed a lily, not the flower. A drawing, childlike, burned at the edges, and beneath it, scrawled in smudged pencil, "You don't need to believe in it. It already believes in you." The police ruled it a disappearance. Followers turned her into a digital martyr. But in Bix County, they simply not another name for the list. And now, you, who hear this story, who perhaps roll your eyes or let the shiver pass quickly down your back, you are thinking, but it's just a legend, just folklore. A metaphor for shame, maybe, or for purity, or for history's cruelty. And yet, why is the lake still red? Why has no sample been successfully tested? No analysis ever concluded? Why does every drone that flies too low lose signal? Why does the church bell near the lake ring once every year? On the exact day, disappeared without anyone pulling the rope. And why, in every story, every witness, every account, over 4 centuries, does the lake never take a girl who tells the truth? Not a poetic truth, not a version, the whole truth? It was never about virginity. Maybe it was never about sin. Maybe it was always about what we hide inside our own skin. Because to the lake, your body is a confession. And water, after all, does not lie. It simply reflects. They call it Vier's. But it was never just a name. It is a mouth. It is a mirror. It is memory made liquid. And if you ever find yourself at its shore, don't test it. Don't wade in as a joke. Don't whisper secrets into its surface, thinking no one hears. It hears, and if you must enter, strip not your clothes, but your lies.